Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks, and welcome to the Dice Commander YouTube channel and Go Again, a fabulous video cast about all things Flesh and Blood. I'm Andrew here as always, and today, folks, I'm absolutely honored to be joined by Sander Neeft, who took down the most recent calling event with his finely tuned Phi deck. That's right, the winner of the recent calling is here with us today to tell us about his journey, discuss his list, looking forward to what comes next in Fab, and maybe, just maybe, show off his gold foil crown. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Thanks for tuning back in, and welcome back to Dice Commando. So, Sander, how's it going, my man?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm still a bit overwhelmed by last weekend, but it's all settling down a little bit right now. So yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I wanted to, I thanked you before we got in here, but you've been one of the easiest interviews I've had to schedule with someone from Europe. The timing's just really, really hard, and you were very flexible. So thanks, and thanks for reaching out to come on. And this is great. So I got to ask before we get started, what's it like being like a celebrity in the Fab world right now?
It's a bit weird, to be honest. Like, I really needed to get used to it a little bit. And like, celebrity might be a bit much. I think after a little while, people might like just forget a little bit about the calling, I think. For now, it just feels like really good. I feel like I'm on some type of cloud or something. Everything just went so smoothly, and people are so nice, and everyone congratulated me, and everything feels so good right now. So yeah, it feels pretty good, actually.
Nice. Well, you'll be the hero until the next hero is crowned, and so it goes.
Yeah.
All right. We are sponsored here by our good friends over at FabDB, fabdb.net, your best resource on the web for deck creation, collection management, and really doing all the research and trying to find cool decks like all the stuff from this last weekend. So thanks to our friends over at FabDB for sponsoring us here and for everything they do for the community. All right, so I actually have a funny story about today's video, is that after Sander and I had coordinated, I sent him my show notes, and then about, 3 to 4 hours after that was when the Stubbies ban dropped. So you betcha we're going to be talking about that today as well. So now, Sander, I wanted to ask you about your history in gaming and what led you to Fab. But first, I have to ask, don't I actually recognize your name from X-Wing? Is that right?
Oh yeah, you might.
Yeah.
I've played a bit of X-Wing the last couple of years, and that's actually also my history in gaming. I think I played X-Wing for 4 years, something like that, since 2018, maybe a bit before. And I did it a bit competitively as well. I went to the World Championship, that type of stuff. Really enjoyed my time there. But lately, I feel the game didn't get a lot better. Got a bit worse, I felt like. So that led me away out of it. But yeah, I'll still like X-Wing. It's still like a really good game. So yeah, you might know me from there, yeah.
Yeah, I think I watched like maybe a live stream or something at one point with your... I had to go back and try and find it, and I couldn't, but I seem to remember your name. So I wanted to ask about that. So Flesh and Blood, what led you from from flying plastic ships around to playing cardboard? Where'd that happen?
I already noted it a bit. Flash over X-Wing just got a little bit worse, like a new company took over, and I wasn't really into the new rules that much. I don't think it's that particularly bad, it was just not my type of style, especially for the more competitive player. I think it turned a little bit more casual. Nothing wrong with casual, by the way, but it was just not for me anymore. And a friend I played X-Wing with, Wouter, he's a pretty good Dutch Briar player, actually. He got to me and he was like, "Hey, you know what, man? Maybe we can try out this card game. It's called Flesh and Blood." And I was just like, "Nah, I'm not going to play card games. I don't like the collectability of it. I don't like the money aspect of it." So I was like, "Nah, I'm not going to do it." But then I was just like, I might as well just buy some of those Blitz decks and see how it goes. We did a couple games and I got hooked, and I've never looked back ever since. I haven't even played X-Wing, I think, since I played Flesh and Blood. So there we go. the game is just so good.
Yeah, fair enough. So, what heroes have you? So, which Blitz decks did you buy? Where did you start? Was it like Monarch, Tails?
We bought the Monarch Blitz deck, but it was when Tails arrived. So I
Hmm.
missed the pre-release from Tails. Tails was already released. I think it was actually on the release day of Tails. I got my Monarch decks. And I do think those were kind of hard to get into, but like
Hmm.
after a couple games, you get a hang of it, and we started enjoying those heroes. So and then I think even 2 days after I bought the Blitz decks, I went to the store get some Tails. Because I just wanted to see like the other sets and wanted to get into like the new good stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah,
So, what heroes have you like? Once it came to constructed, like who was your first love?
my first love was definitely Bravo. The
Okay.
old one, of course, like
Yeah. Yeah.
Showstopper. I've actually played him until Uprising most of the time. I had some other decks floating around. I played a bit of Prism. I did play a bit of Azalea, but not much. But mostly it was just Bravo and all types of builds like aggro, full fatigue. I've tried everything, I think. So yeah, I still love the deck, and I might still go back to it at some point.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, let's get into the calling, right? So, Utrecht, right? I say that right. I hope. I
You did
hope.
say it right. Yeah.
Great. So let's go into the event. So, can you just kind of high level walk us through the events, or I should say maybe the main body of event, and I'm sure the top cut's its own event, right? So just let us know how it went.
So I was a bit nervous at the start of the event. I hadn't gone to any big card game events yet. Of course, I had my armories, and I even had like some pro quests and stuff, and road to nationals, but nothing national or anything like that. So I was a bit surprised how the draft went, and I needed to like get used to that a bit. But after the first draft, it actually went quite smoothly. First draft, I went into Dromai. Bit weird. I'm not really a big Dromai player. I was actually looking for Fi at the moment, but it wasn't open at the table, so got pushed into Dromai a bit. And I got actually lucky in my third pack. In my third pack, I opened the Rainbow Foil Furnace, and getting a Rainbow Foil Furnace in your first draft does make you feel a bit more comfortable than before, especially when you're already on Dromai. So the first draft went really smoothly. Um, yeah, so the first draft was nice. Then the rest of the first day was CC, 4 rounds. First round, I was paired against an Icelander. Some people might say that's a bit of a rough matchup for Fi, and I think it might be correct. But as some of you might have already seen, I run 3 null rune. And some people think it's for Kano, but it's mostly actually there for Icelander because I didn't expect any Kanos. The thing is, if you play against an Icelander and she gets rolling from the start, so she starts turn 1 with like a Channel Lake or something else that really slows you down, you need some way to buy time. And if you don't have any arcane barrier, you don't have enough. You don't have enough time. You just die before you can get back into the game. So what I did was I included an extra blue. I went 3 AB and I pitched away every time they played Channel Lake, and I took a couple damage, but I just waited the Channel Lakes out, and when they were done, I could go again. And I think that's the way to go against Icelander, and I do think most other 5 builds don't have that opportunity. I don't think they even played Icelanders because there weren't that many that got far. So it was a bit weird for me getting paired round 1. This was actually pretty good Icelander player, so not a shame on like the people that play it, but I don't think it's that great at the moment. And I think I got through it pretty easily because of the AB3. Then I got into a better matchup. I got into Prism. I think it's just really hard for Prism to do anything against Fi. Even with Shuko, you can block the Herald of Eruditions. So the one way they can get back into the game is actually taken out by your equipment. And then you just kill the auras with your Phoenix Flames, and mostly just go face deep for the rest of the time, and she goes down really quick. I did get surprised a bit. At some point, she started Heralds, and I was just ignoring most of them, to be honest, and going face. I popped some of them even. And at some point, the Prism player kept his hand, even though I was dealing a lot of damage, even though I got mass triggers off. And I was just like, oh, this is going to be like a really big Herald turn. I'm a bit scared. And then I had an Erase Face in hand. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to play the Erase Face to make sure the Heralds don't have Go again, if I say it correctly. And I was just like, that might be a way to get around it. And I played an Erase Face, and the Prism player didn't block it. And then I got even more worried. And in that player's turn, he played a Genesis and a Haste Bending and Arsenal because he had a Tunic counter for the Genesis. And there it swung a bit back into his favor, I guess. I couldn't really easily deal with the auras, and I already got him low, so I was trying to go down on his health instead of the auras. That might have been a mistake, so I actually got quite close to dying. I think I got down to 5 or 6 or something. So that was actually a really close matchup for the fact that it was against Prism.
Mm-hmm.
Last 2 matchups were against Fi, so those were just mirror matchups. Both ran links, bouncing links. I personally run Mask of Momentum in the mirror, and that's just my deck is just more suited towards Mask of Momentum and not as much against links or with links. I'm not sure what the best call is. Well, now Stubbies got banned. I think it's actually Mask of Momentum, but with Stubbies, links might have been a better call. I just really like getting pressure for momentum and then being able to block with momentum. The thing with links is that you can get pressure because you pop it, but you can't use it for blocking as well. And most people using links also ran Blossom of Spring, so they couldn't block with Furnace. So I personally liked using Mask and Furnace above Blossom and links. And it actually worked out for me, so I won both mirrors. So first day I got 7-0. Did not expect it at all. I was actually not planning coming back day 2. I was actually there for just one day. I was on holidays, and I was just like, oh, I can play one day and then go back to the holiday and be there with friends and everything. So I wasn't planning on making it to day 2, especially not with going 7-0. Going into day 2, that started with another draft.
Well, so real quick before we go into day 2,
Yep.
So there may be people watching who aren't familiar with what the structure of the event was, right? So you mentioned the draft. So it was a 8-person draft pod, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there was 3 games there, and then the 4 games you just listed were all CC matches, correct?
Yeah. So it's 3 rounds draft, 4 rounds CC, and you made day 2 if you were 5-2.
Okay.
But actually, because of the number of people, they wanted to get it to a top 64. So there were even some 4-3s that got into the top 64. Day 2 was kind of a repeat of day 1. So it started with a 8-pot draft, 3 rounds. And then it would have been 2 to 4 rounds of CC. They scaled it down to 2 because of the number of people that were there. So it ended up being 3 rounds of draft, 2 rounds of CC, and then a top 8 cut. Day 2 started with me with the draft, and I got pushed into Dromai again. I actually don't really like drafting Dromai in this format, and I ended up doing it twice. I just think Fi is stronger in the draft, but I do think a lot of people feel like that, so that's probably the reason it gets taken away a lot, and I get pushed into Dromai because of it. But I do need to say, I feel like Dromai is quite an insta win against most Icelanders, because there aren't a lot of Dromai players, so you probably have a good Dromai deck. And against Icelander, if it doesn't have enough cinches, but even when they do, it's still really rough to get through Dromai. And then again, when you play against Fi, it might feel bad, but even against medium Fi decks, I think Dromai can win. The first 2 games were wins for me. The first round I played against Sebastian. I am blanking on his last name right now. Sebastian Gondal. He was the EU champ from Friday. And I played him in draft. He was playing Icelander, and afterwards he told me he wasn't really happy about how the draft went, even though he had a pretty good Icelander deck. He just didn't got paired up into the right matchups and didn't win the dice roll, so he said that like hold him back a bit. So as I said, like with me as Dromai against his Icelander, that was a victory. Like that was pretty doable for me. Second match, I played against a Fi, actually someone from the Netherlands as well. Benji, really nice guy by the way. Also played Fi in CC. No, he played Briar in CC. But his Fi deck wasn't optimal. I think it was a good Fi deck for draft. I would have been happy with it if I were him. But because my Dromai deck was so insane, I could still bring out the win. Even made some mistakes here and there, but it was still enough. Actually got down to the last cards if I remember correctly. And then the third draft round was my first loss. I played against Paul Miranda, and he beat me with a Fi deck that that remembered me of my own fight deck in CC. So I got a bit scared of that as well, and their draw might does lose, like if you play against like a really good fight player for one, and then against like a really good fight deck, especially the number of reds is really important in that, I feel like. And he just came out of the gate swinging, and I just lost tempo really early. So that was a pretty hard loss for me in draft. So at that point I was 9-1. I already made top 8 at that point because of how the tiebreakers work. So the 2CC rounds were more for seeding than for anything else. A fun thing was the first CC round I played against Paul again. So the guy that beat me in draft, I got paired against him in CC because we were the only 9-1s. And because they see a difference between draft and CC, you can get paired up against each other again. He was playing Briar, and now I was playing Fi, so I actually got quite happy that I was on the Fi side of that one. It was a pretty close match, but it was a bit of a weird one because both of us didn't get really good hands. He didn't get channel mounts, I didn't get really good pop-off turns, so it was a bit of a slow back and forth between two aggro decks, but it ended up being in my favor. And then the last match was against a Bravo from Poland. I don't remember his name, it was a really good player. He did beat me, actually. It was my only CC loss. I got him down to 1, but Bravo is just really rough for Fi. I didn't run any sinks back then. I think Sebastian in the EU champ did run sinks, and I do think that was the best call at the time. So I was really missing those, and he started off turn 1. He put a Crippling Crush in Arsenal with his Showtime up, and then next turn it was just Crippling Crush. Turn after was Crippling Crush. Turn after was Spinal. And then the Spinal, I thought, oh, I can block this with my equipment and a card, and then he bubbled it. And then the turn after was another Crippling Crush, and then I died. So I was just a bit like, oh, well, I got him down to 1. I'm happy I got that far. And in the end, it didn't matter, luckily, because I still got first seed into the top 8, because I was the first one who got 10 wins. And my losses were, so the last round of PC and the last round of draft, so those were pretty late. So I got to pick the priority in the top 8 matches, which is actually a really good thing as a Fi player.
Yeah.
Can we go into top 8?
Yeah, please.
Top 8 was a Fi mirror first. He did actually run Pouncing Links, but also ran Furnace, and I'm not sure if it was the right call, but it does work kinda, because you can stop my Mask triggers a little bit. I'm not sure if he knew that I was running Mask, and therefore he took the Furnace, and normally would have ran something else. I'm not sure, but he might have. And I think that's a good call, because using Furnace to block some Mask triggers can be really useful. But in the end, I don't remember the exact turn, but I had like an insane pop-off turn with Art of Wars. I might even have gotten an Art of War out of my Art of War. So I played Art of War, and then Stubbies or something, and I'm really sorry for him because he couldn't do much that matchup. It was just a high roll, I feel like. Then in the semifinals played Kevin from Belgium. He was playing Viserai. I think I should have lost that match. Like, it got like really close. I got down to 1 again. He dealt just so surprisingly amount of damage. I didn't really practice against Viserai that much. When we get into the deck list, I do have some recommendations of how I could have built my deck differently so it's more suited for Viserai. And he just got off swinging from the start, and I couldn't really do much. But I was going pretty fast as well, but I just had the feeling he was going faster. But in the end, I ended up blocking with equipment pretty smart. So I could get down to 1, and he couldn't kill me even with Arcane barrier over Arcane damage. So I just got down to 1 perfectly and had actually a pretty decent turn. And because of that decent turn, he needed to block with his full hand and couldn't do anything back. A really important thing in that matchup is if I let myself go down to 1, I can't have him end the turn with a blue, because he has a blue in hand at the start of his turn. He can just make Rune Chant Rosetta, and I die because I didn't run any Arcane barrier. I didn't run Tide Flippers in that matchup. We'll talk about Tide Flippers further Snapdangers as well, I assume. So that was a bit of a scary semi-finals, but it was a really clean game, and I think it was one of my better Flesh and Blood games I've played at the tournament, but actually even outside the tournament. So I want to thank Kevin for that, because it felt really clean and felt really nice playing him. Also, he was such a good player, and I didn't knew him before, but I looked him up after, and I think he also did some really nice accomplishments. So he's a really cool guy. Then we got into the finals, and it was a mirror again. I played against Peter Ward. I actually played him in day 1 as well in one of my mirror matches. And he was into the full combo fight, so only links. I don't even think he ran Mask of Momentum. He just went fully links, and he just popped off turn 2. So what I did, I let him start. I tried to put on pressure with my Mask of Momentum, because again, I was running Mask, even in the mirror. I tried to put on pressure with Mask, and I got some pressure, but he just took everything. And I was like, oh, I'm in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his turn 2, so his first real turn, he went off with Art of War Stubby Spreading Flames, I think, if I remember correctly.
Oof.
And he just went wide. And I think I got down to 3 or to 4 or something after that turn. And in my head, I already thought, okay, this is it. Well, I'm happy I got second place. I'm proud of what I achieved. But then I still had like a pretty decent hand, and I could actually force him into some blocks. So first with the Mask of Momentum trigger, and he didn't block it, he took it. Then with the Snatch, he didn't block it, he took it. And then I came in with a Snapdragon into Lava Burst, and I just had a really big turn myself. But then again, I was still on the back foot because he was actually having enough pressure to be able to kill me. But then in the turn after that, I came in with blocking with Furnace, blocking with Mask of Momentum. And yeah, he didn't have those at his disposal because he had to use all his equipment in his pop-off turn. So I feel like in the mirror match, it can be really nice having that block. And that's why I personally prefer Mask of Momentum over Pouncing Links. Because if you use Pouncing Links, it got destroyed. You can't block with it anymore. If I use Mask, I can use it until the point where I need the block. And I feel like it's just, when people compare it, they say, yeah, but Mask is maybe 1, maybe 2 cards, and you don't even know what they are. But I feel Pouncing is one really good card, but you can't block after it. And I think that's just really good on Mask of Momentum. And the same with Furnace, actually. You can also block with Furnace. If you used your block really well against a Pouncing Links deck, and they are looking for Salt, 2 blocks can actually count as 3 blocks. Because if you block with a 2 defense equipment piece, it does prevent the trigger on Salt the Wound, so it actually blocks for 3. And that's just a lot of value there. So he got me down to 1 eventually, and I still got it out. So it was really, really close, and I think it could have gone either way. I think 1 red card more or 1 blue card less or something. That it could have been enough to put the nail in my coffin there. But I escaped with 1 life, and it brought me to the calling victory.
Nice. Well, awesome. That was a very, very detailed rundown. I'm impressed you can remember all that. I know after stuff like that. I mean, I've never made a calling that big, but even after locals and stuff, I can't remember what was going on. So, props to you there. That's impressive.
I do need to say, like, I think it's because it just felt like such a roller coaster. Every moment felt so special that I was still there. So first I didn't expect to make day 2, so winning those matchups at day 1 was so special for me that made me remember them a bit more, I think. And then at day 2 the same thing. I was actually expecting to go 0-5. I was just like, yeah, I'm driving all this way back to the tournament, probably just go 0-5 and go home. But well, it didn't end up that way, so I think that's why it stuck a little bit more with me, because as I said, I'm a bit on a cloud. So
yeah, fair enough. All right, well, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to throw up your deck list, which obviously this is straight from LSS's site. I know a lot of people have seen this already, but as we go through this, let's go ahead and, let's talk not only that, but what you want to maybe change. You already spoke, I heard Sink Below in there, some stuff like that. So, yeah, why don't you just walk us through this guy?
You want to talk about the changes first, or about like the more weird picks in the list? What do you want first?
Yeah, let's talk the tech. I think that's a good start. Let's talk the tech, or the tactical choices, and then we can and then as we go through, maybe you're like, well, this was a tech choice and it was a bad choice. Yeah, whatever. However you want to do it.
Okay. So I have a couple things that I think were good tech at the time. One is the That's All You Got. I feel That's All You Got is pretty big into the mirror. I was expecting a lot more Mask of Momentum decks in the mirror, and in that mirror it's actually a lot better, because blocking 2 attacks is way easier. In the Pouncing Links, most attacks come in for 3 or higher, so it doesn't work that well. But it does work really well into the Mask of Momentum triggers. So in the end, it wasn't that great, I felt like. I think it's a lot better now Stubby's got away, but we'll talk about it later. So that was why I put those in. I think those are really nice. I might even go up to 3 right now. That might be a thing. I probably will cut my Salt the Wound. I'm not that big on pouncing links anyway, especially after stubbies. So I might get Salt the Wound out and just go to a third. That's all you got. One of the weird things in my deck list is Burn Away. And the thing with Burn Away, I thought it was bad. I thought it was really bad. And then I found the deck list online that this deck is actually based on. If I remember correctly, it's Travis McDaniel's list. He won a RTN in Indy in the States. And he ran Burn Away. And I was just like, I don't feel this card that much, but I'll just try it, just like put it in and see what happens. And I actually fell in love with it. The thing is, it seems really bad if you don't banish the Phoenix Flame.
Mm-hmm.
But because this deck is running so little Enders, Chain Enders, I could actually not banish the Phoenix Flame and just end my combat chain on this. And then it's decent. It's a 2 attack. It gets buffed by Spreading Flames easily. It gets buffed by Art of War. It gets buffed by Stubbies. So it was just
it gets buffed by the Shuko as well, right?
Yeah, it also works with Shuko now. So I think it's still it's probably still in there. If I'm going to build like another file list with Shuko, it will probably still be in there. And of course, you would like to use the ability. I don't have anything in my deck that gets Phoenix Flames back from the discard pile, except of course the fire ability.
Mm-hmm.
So I always want to keep in one. But I don't really care about the second and the third. Of course, the second is nice because then sometimes you can Arsenal one and in the next turn you can get a second one back, so you have 2 in 1 chain link. But I don't really care about it that much, and the third is just completely useless. So when I have like a third or a second Phoenix Flame in my discard pile, I will use the ability on Burn Away as well, and then it's a really above rate card because it's a 4 go again. That works with spreading, and that works with what's called Belittle. So it actually is a lot better than just 4 go again. Beside all those things, it's also a 3 block. So when I actually started playing this list, I included a lot more 3 blocks than I had in the list before, in my older list. Because I don't want it to be that Fi that only went really hard and only went a lot of damage. I want to be able to block certain triggers. I want to be able to block a 4 snatch. I want to be able to block a Mask of Momentum trigger, those type of things. And I think having a lot of 3 blocks does help you do that, and Burn Away was one of those cards that helped me with it. So I think that's why I ran Burn Away. I also saw some questions about Flying Kick, a lot less than about Burn Away, but also still a couple. Flying Kick is really good if you are on the more defensive Fi builds, and defensive doesn't mean you're not an aggro deck. You're still definitely aggro deck, but I just want to be able to defend a little bit, and I think Flying Kick is then really good. It's not great if you're using Pouncing Links. If you're using Pouncing Links, you're looking for one big pop-off turn. If you draw into Flying Kick with Art of War, you might just screw yourself over. So I would not recommend it then. But because I was more on the slower Fi build, I think it's actually really good because it's a 3 block. If you get a Belittle into Minnowism, you probably have enough resources to actually pay for its ability. And then it being a 2 for 5 is really good. And again, I don't have a lot of chain enders, so it doesn't get into the way of, oh, it doesn't have go again, because most of the time that isn't actually a problem. Then we get into, I want to say some things about my equipment. So first I see the triple no rune that gets, the people are a bit weird about. I already talked about the Icelander matchup a bit. That's the most reason why it's there. You just run Mask of Momentum and triple no rune, and that might be enough to get away of those Channel Lake Frigates. Just wait it out, just take a bit of chip damage, but not much. It's also good into Kano, by the way. So if you ever run into a Kano, it makes it so that the Kano needs to set up a little bit more. I'm not sure, you might still want to burst the Kano, but I don't think your equipment helps that much with it. You might run Pouncing Links, I'm just not sure. It's just, I feel like in Kano it's a bit more more unexplored for me. I haven't tried it that much. But even there, I think Triple No Rune is pretty good because they can't just use all their on hit triggers for free. They really actually need to do something for it. One of the bigger things is the boots. You have the Tide Flippers and Snaps. I run both. One because of the Arcane barrier. I did think about just running Tide Flippers, but I had a couple attacks that I wanted to be able to give go again that were above 2. Snatch is one of them. I only ran 1, so that might not be a good reason. But also being able to get your Chane off with a Blaze Headlong into Snap is a lot better than it looks. I just want consistency. I don't want the risk that I have a hand with a Blaze Headlong, what's it called, Lava Pain Loyalty, and then I'm just like, oh, I can't do that much, and I want to be able to be like, oh, Blaze Headlong into Snap into Lava Vein, and then you get rolling, you know. So I think that's a bit more about consistency than actually being that good. I don't think you use it most of the time, and that's why there is a one-off of Snatch. I just want to have a good reason to use it, and if I've already used it and I'd rather Snatch, it's still a good thing to play just for the Arsenal target. You don't have to have Go Again to use Snatch. I just like it being able to go again with Snatch. I think those were the most questioned things. Maybe Double Strike is also one that got asked about a bit. I just think Double Strike is really good. It makes it easy to get to 2 Moss triggers. I think without Double Strike, you mostly get to 5 Chain Links on average. With Double Strike, you get to 6, and that's just another Moss trigger. So that's why I like the Double Strikes. It's pretty good with Shuko now. I do think it's a bit less good though. Stubbies made it a card of 4, spread into 2 2s and go again. And Shuko's, it does work with Shuko, but you already have the Phoenix Flame, so you only need 1 attack that is 2 or less, not 2. So it might not be great now, but it's still pretty decent at least. It does work with Art of War, so it does get buffed with that. I do run a lot of Brentwood Cinderclaws to make it Draconic, so that also helps for my ability. It also helps with Spreading Flames. I do think it's a good card. I'm not 100% sold on it, but that's the card that I might consider taking out, keeping in. I'm not sure on it yet.
Okay, so this was a main deck. Double Strike was a main deck card for you then.
It definitely was a main deck card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm running. I mean, not that again you're the winner, but I'm running it for the Dramai because we see a lot of Dramai in my meta. So I'm running it as a sideboard for Dramai because it can pop, right?
I do understand why you would put it into sideboard as Dramai. The thing I feel like Dramai is a pretty good matchup for Fi. So I'm not sure if I need a sideboard card for it. Though I need to say, even if it's a good matchup, if a lot of people start playing it, then you might still side for it just to make it a better matchup. I also feel that if you want to play Double Strike in your side, you might as well include it in your main, because it is not bad in other matchups. It's just maybe a little bit less efficient. Surprisingly enough, I do think it's a pretty good thing because it started off for Blaze Headlong, which it does count as a red. It's not a Draconic, so that makes it a bit more clunky. But if you have enough Draconic starters, that shouldn't be a problem as well. I think if I would run it, I would just run it mainboard. But as I said, I'm just not sure. Like, I might still play it. It's still in there as of right now, but it's a card that might get cut if I need more space.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so any other changes you'd be looking at? Anything?
I would probably play 3 Erase Phase. I did practice a bit more against Viserai. The Viserai in the tournament was actually my first Viserai against Fi match I think I played. And I just realized how strong Viserai is. Erase Phase is really good against him. It stops his Malfurion Skies. It stops his ability, which is pretty big. So I would probably go to 3 Erase Phase. I'm not sure if I would take out a Command and Conquer for it, but I would just look somewhere else for space and try to fit it in. It's also good against Prism and against Dromai, so it's still useful in most matchups, but it's just that I think Viserai is a really good deck right now, and I want to attack a bit more against him.
Okay. And then you mentioned Sink Below as well, right?
Oh yeah, I actually looked into Sink Below for the Bravos. It's a bit weird. Since Stubbies got banned now, I'm not sure if I'm actually using it without the Stubbies. The reason is, I'm not sure if we'll see that many Bravos. I do think we might see some. But Bravo was just an easy counter into the Stubbies Fi. And I'm not sure if we'll see a lot of Fis right now. And if we won't see a lot of Fis, Bravo is a bit useless. So it might be that you can take it out if there aren't a lot of Bravos. If Bravo gets back into the meta and will stay there, then you'll probably want to run Sinks, because Sink is also just a good ability. You can really make your hand how you want to be, and you can block a nice Spinal Crush or even a Crippling Crush at times. So yeah, I would run that one. I'm not sure what I would take out for it. Maybe that's all you got, depending on the meta as well.
Got it. And then you're specifically worried about Bravo just because of the addition of crippling, right? And when I mean that, I mean Bravo versus Oldhim, right? You're just worried about crippling. That's the difference there.
Why I think Bravo is more scary than Oldhim, you mean?
Yeah.
I think Bravo is more scary than Oldhim, not only because of the crippling. I think crippling is important because it just gives another threat. I actually do think Spinal might be more annoying for fight than crippling is. Though Spinal is easier to block, so might be a bit easier. I think the biggest difference is the dominate. When I play against a Oldhim and he needs to throw his whole hand away to play a Spinal, or a big part of it, of course I lose tempo and I need to block with my cards, but I don't lose life. So I only lose a turn, I don't lose life. If I play against a Bravo, he dominates it, he Spinals me. If he gets the Spinal through, I have a full hand and I can't use it. So the only thing a Fi can do is attack for 3, maybe 4 if you're lucky. And that really puts you behind. And that's why I feel like Bravo is just a bit stronger right now. Into Fi at least. And Oldhim is actually pretty good matchup for Fi, I feel. You go wide enough so the defensive side of Oldhim doesn't work, and the aggressive side doesn't always have enough on hit triggers, and you still have some blocking your equipment to block the important on hit triggers. So I think that should be a doable matchup. I wouldn't include Sync for just Oldhim. I would include it for Bravo.
Okay, so let's go ahead. I mean, we've already brought up like 19 times, right? But the Stubbies ban. So how does that change? I mean, we've already talked, kind of some of the individual cards. So let's just talk maybe, base philosophy. How does it change the meta approach, I guess, right?
Okay. I want to say that I'm pretty happy with the Stubbies ban. It sounds a bit weird coming off a calling win with a deck that I feel comfortable with. But I just thought Stubbies made the game a bit too quick. It also made it that Fi is wins most matchups even if it's an aggro deck because you can go quick enough. But it also wins you the control matchups because you can go wide enough. And it just felt a bit much. So I'm happy they banned it. I actually like the Shuko playstyle a bit more as a player than the Stubbies playstyle. That's also why I didn't run the Pouncing Links combo too much. Also because I just wasn't sure if it was good enough. Apparently it is. But just because I want to be a bit more defensive, a bit more longer games than the Stubbies meta was. I do think it changes the fight deck a bit. I think it opens up for playing more yellow cards. I saw a deck list that won an RTN, White Stripes or something. I'm not even sure what his name was again.
Oh, is that the
Rice,
White Rice? Yeah.
He was running a lot of yellows instead of blues. I think he was running only 12 blues and a bit more yellows than I was. Because what you do, if you have a yellow 2 attack, it works with Shuko. So Rising Resentment, for example, you have a yellow Rising Resentment and a Phoenix Flame, it triggers Shuko. If you have 2 yellows, you can just use 1 to pitch for weapon. So it makes it so that you can be a bit more efficient. You can have less blues, so you don't blue up in a whole hand. Because if you have too many yellows, you can just play them. If you have too many blues, it feels kind of bad. Your yellows now feel as reds, and therefore I think it changed the philosophy of the deck a bit. Because you don't have to run as many blues. And I think that it makes the playstyle different. It also makes Mask of Momentum a lot better, which I like because I prefer Mask of Momentum over Lynx. And into the aggro matchups, I don't think you'll see a lot of Pouncing Lynx builds anymore because you can't raise those aggro decks with a Pouncing Lynx deck, I feel you need to pressure them with Mask of Momentum from now on. And you can use Shuko to do it. You can also block with Shuko on important on hit effects, maybe with some later in the game. So it makes the deck a bit slower, but it also gives it some upside. So I'm not all thinking it's that bad. I don't think the difference is as big as people think. Yeah, the OTK version is gone, I think, but it's still doable building a Shuko list that's just a bit different than what we've seen. Well, the White Rice list, of course, is the option you can go. For people looking into building a Shuko list, I would definitely start there. I do think it could use some tweaks here and there, but it's definitely a great start.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, so I'm assuming you have a testing team that you're playing with to some amount, or do you jam a lot on TTS? Do you get a lot in person? What's your approach?
Okay, so I play mostly armories. We have a couple local stores that host them. I have one in Amsterdam. Well, it's the most famous city, I think, from the Netherlands. So there I go. I went there mostly when I started playing. They do a lot of Blitz and a lot of starting events. So I got learning the game there, and I just really appreciate that community. So that's nice. And then we have 2 other armories around in Horen and Alkmaar, and I play there a lot of CC mostly. And those people I meet outside of those armies as well. So I sometimes meet them at my place to just jam some games. There I get the most practice, I think. Mostly with a friend that I called out earlier, Wouter Ouwehand. I play a lot of X-Wing with him, and we practiced for X-Wing events. Now we just practice for Flesh and Blood events. It didn't change much, actually. So, yeah, I get like a lot of games there. I also play some TTS and webcam games, mostly in the international Discord group. I sometimes just look for a game and see what I can play against. I think the good thing about that is that you get paired up against heroes that you haven't played that much. If you keep going to your local armies, you just get paired up against the same decks, which is also good because, for example, I played a lot against Briar. Seeing a Briar at a tournament doesn't scare me. I know exactly how the matchup goes. Sometimes I even have the feeling I know it better than the other Briar player because they haven't played against my list that often. So that's why I would prefer going to armories, but sometimes you just need to get your matchup somewhere else, and then I look for TTS or for webcam games in the Discord, and that works pretty good for me. We don't have like a real testing team, I would say. I just have some team members that we jam some games with.
Okay, great.
Oh, I do need to add one thing. I'm
yeah.
quite lucky. Like my girlfriend or my fiance also plays, so we play a couple games at home every now and again. So I do get some games in there as well. I think I'm quite lucky into that one. So,
right. So do you have any advice to that end for, let's say, somebody who maybe doesn't have access to testing team or testing team, but right, maybe the only thing they get every week is their armories, and then the rest of the time they're playing at 2 a.m. Any advice for someone like that?
I do think it's not all about playing. Actually, I do think it's a lot about reviewing your deck list. The philosophy about your deck, the philosophy about the card. I actually liked your videos for that as well. Like the DeFi statistic video was really good into that. It's not all about playing. I do think you need to evaluate some picks. You sometimes just need to play cards to make sure they're good because, as I talked about Burn Away, I didn't expect it to be good, and then I played it and I realized it was actually pretty amazing. But I do think it's also a little bit about deck building, deciding what or what's it called, thinking about the meta. Like what do I expect at a tournament? Do I expect a lot of Viscera? Do I expect a lot of Prism? And build your deck for that, and maybe try to find some matchups into those heroes. So I would say look at other people's decks, get your inspiration from that as well. I do know there's a bit of a people look a bit wrong at net decking. But I do think net decking does have a purpose. I do think it works really well to learn cards that you didn't think about before, learn about interaction that you haven't looked into before, and then combine the things you learn from all those decks into your deck, and do jam some games with that. Of course, like you need to get used to your deck. You need to see the lines. You need to be more on autopilot in most of your games before you can actually perform well, I think.
Yeah, I like that. Source the ideas, but make it your own. I like that. All right, so we've from one competitive season to the next. That's the way it works around here, right? So we have Pro Tour coming up in lovely France here. What's your call? What's your bold take?
My bold take is that it's going to be close between a lot of heroes. I do think Stubby's ban makes it so that Fi is probably not the most sought after hero. I do not think it will be top 3. It might be top 4, top 5 or something. It might be good enough to be into the top tier heroes, but it's definitely not the best at the moment. I do think, this is my hot take. I think Viscera is the best hero right now. I'm not saying it's winning the Pro Tour because there are a lot of variables into the equation if it will win or not, but I do think it's probably the strongest deck right now. Of course, it's easy. Well, not easy. It's doable to counter it. I already talked about Erase Phase, so I do think if a lot of people catch up to Viscera being good, I do think most people will also try to beat it and try to find ways to beat it. But just in isolation, I think Viscera is probably the strongest hero right now. I also thought it before the Stubbies ban, by the way. I just realized into the tournament that Viscera is really good. Maybe I should have got onto that earlier. It's also pretty good into Fi, even with stubbies. I do think Viscera is good.
Yeah, can Viscera race? I honestly, I haven't thought about it even from like a math standpoint. Can Viscera mathematically race Fi now that Stubbies is gone? Probably, right?
It definitely can. I actually think
Yeah.
it could maybe with stubbies. With stubbies, the thing is that the bouncing links deck with Blossom of Spring and everything, it's really dependent on where you get your Art of Wars and Spreading Flames. Okay, if the Fi player gets them on his turn 2 and he's ready to pop off on turn 2, probably not. But even then, Viscera has a lot of weird interactions that stack up to a lot of damage. I've been playtesting a bit with Viscera, and sometimes I just get like a 28 damage turn out of nowhere, and I'm just like, I didn't have any setup for this. It just worked out that way. And especially into aggro matchups where most on-hit triggers just go off. I don't know. I just feel Viscera can raise Fi without stubbies, but maybe even with stubbies. And I don't think there's a lot Fi can do about it besides the raise phase. Maybe you want to run That's All You Got into it. Now you can block the Rosetta Thorn to just get 2 damage lower and get a card back. I do think that's a good trade, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Well, we will see soon enough. All right, so what we've all been waiting for, the gold crown. Let's see it, baby.
I do have it lying around here. It's still in the wrapper thing. I'm trying to get rid of it. I don't feel really comfortable having a card like this in my house at the moment, but it does look amazing. One of the first things I did actually when I got this one was order a rainbow foil one because I didn't have any of those yet, and I really want to use it, but it just feels a bit bad bringing these to my armories. But it looks so good. I think it's one of the better arts actually. I'm not sure if it's as good as Tunic. I do think the extended art Tunic looked really good, but this one definitely is up there. I do really think the art is amazing. The gold foil does match the card really well. And I do think having a crown as a first prize is just it's how it should be, you know. Tunic is just a nice dress, but this is actually a crown, and I feel they did pretty well at LSS.
I like that. Tunic's just a dress, but mine's a crown. I like that.
It's a bit more suitable for a winning tournament, I feel like. So that's why I like the crown as a first prize. It just looks really, really good.
Awesome. Well, again, congratulations. Impressive feat, even just to make it through that from a stamina standpoint, right? So, nicely done. Right. Well, before we get out of here, do you have any parting shots, any shout outs, any hot takes, anything?
One, thanks Wouter. He's probably listening to this as well. Like I couldn't have done it without him. That dude has helped me to so many tournaments. He has beaten me so often. He has made me learn. You know, like without him, I would have probably been on like a bad deck and get stomped at every tournament because I didn't expect it to actually be bad. And besides that, I would say make Azalea great again. I would love to see Azalea being good. So please, dynasties, be good to Azalea.
1 for 7 arrows. She needs Herald arrows. That's what she needs. Herald.
Yeah,
arrows.
she definitely needs Herald arrows. Yeah, that would have been great. Erudition as well, like just an Erudition for 7, draw 2 cards. Yeah, that sounds right.
Her next bow gives everything go again N+1. It's Voltaire.
Oh yeah,
Voltaire 2. There you go.
But only for Azalea, by the way. I don't want any Lexi buffs. I think Lexi's good enough.
Lexi seems pretty good. Lexi can also race Fi actually, which is pretty cool. But
yeah, Lexi. I actually had some good testing into Lexi, but that's more personally. I think I've heard a lot of Fi struggling against it.
Well, ice or lightning.
Yeah, ice.
Ice, yeah. Yeah, I think that I've seen some. I mean, they're not good against other heroes, but the on-hit lightning is pretty. I mean, yeah. In a no-block meta, on-hit effects reign supreme, right? So
definitely, yeah. Feels a bit like stubbies.
Yeah. So are you headed to Pro Tour? You headed to France?
Yeah, I'm going to the Pro Tour. I already booked my flight and everything before I got a PTI. I was going to play the calling there.
Oh, okay.
But now I got my PTI in just before the sign-up went down, so I was on time to get my Pro Tour ticket. So I'm just playing the Pro Tour now. Yeah, I'm pretty hyped about it. Also hyped about meeting a lot of people that I've seen online and I've spoken online, and it's really cool that they're all coming to Lille. For me, it's quite close by, but I know that a lot of people are traveling from far and away. And I would just love to meet a lot of people and play this awesome game with them.
Yeah, well, our local boy Archer's headed over there, so
Nice.
I'll send something with him for you. So just a little
Oh, thanks.
something. Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday afternoon, evening, to make this happen. I really appreciate it, and again, congratulations,
Yeah,
congratulations.
no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm actually like honored to be here. Like I know you said you were honored to have me, but it just feels so surreal that I'm actually on like a YouTube channel that I normally watch. That's just really cool.
All right. Well, I love it, and again, thanks for everything. So you gotta say it with me, man. Three, two,
I
one.
will
Go
go
Commando.
Commando.